All right, I wanted to take a minute to go through folders, links, and tags in Obsidian because there's a whole lot of information out there on how to deal with these things, and none of them, in my opinion, do a very good job because I've been confused about it for a long time. I've been using Obsidian for years, and I never really had a good method for dealing with all of the notes. I've got thousands of notes in my repository, and they're on all kinds of different subjects. And I always had the opinion that if I didn't use folders, which is what most people recommend that you do, then it would be very difficult to go and find things that I'm looking for. And I still feel that way. I do not see how only having everything in one folder or even in 3 or 4 folders is going to be conducive to the way that I operate anyway. And so I wanted to kind of go through why I think folders are necessary. And then I want to get into tags and links because those are two other aspects to this process that very few people explain in a way that's, to me, easy to understand. So hopefully I'll do a little bit better job. So folders. In the true Zettelkasting manual paper process, you have cards that you're writing your notes on, and each of those cards is getting a number put on the top of it, and that number is supposed to help you keep all of the different cards linked together so that you know what is going on. But from the books and the things that I've read on the subject, these notes don't necessarily have meanings to them. They're numbers that allow you to easily reference that number from another location. And to me, folders takes care of that, and I don't have to use these numbers. It gives me the ability to kind of group like things together and not have to number everything and then link it through some other mechanism. Mocks are one example where they go through its maps of content, and on a mock you can actually go through. For example, if I go to the 14th Amendment, it's a single note, but this note links in a whole lot of other notes that I have. So it's like one repository for information, and then it links in everything that might be relevant to that subject, and they're extremely useful. I'm not putting down using mocks. I use them quite a bit, but to me they don't really solve the problem of this as an example. So I have books that I read, and so I have a books folder that I try to maintain, what I'm reading and what my opinion is on it. I've got, I'm researching data centers. I've got a whole lot of resources that I've put in there for data centers. And if you can imagine, if I just threw notes into my repository and I just tagged it with data center, if I'm looking for something specific, I've got to go look at all the tags that relate to data center, and then I got to scroll through this big list to try to find what I want. Where if you look the way that I have them laid out, I have news articles that have been written. I've got people that are involved in the data centers that I'm researching, wetland information. And so by having folders and subfolders, I'm able to organize my stuff a lot faster and be able to get to what I'm looking for a lot faster. Otherwise, I have to use a ton of tags, and I'm going to have a lot of bases set up to be able to look at the tags. And even that's not going to necessarily give me exactly what I'm looking for. So to me, if you don't use folders, I think that's a mistake. I think you'd end up with, like right now, I've got 4,400 notes in my repository. You would literally end up with a list here of 4,400 things, and you would have to use tags and things to try to find what you're looking for. And given the fact that I have research projects that I've got going, if you go down to my political section, I have, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, all of these things that if I didn't have folders to put the stuff in, it'd make it really difficult to go and find later. And so I highly recommend using folders. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing that is rather confusing about this whole Obsidian thing is that you have two different things. You have things called tags, which are kind of like keywords that you would put on a YouTube video, for example. But I don't think about it that way. A tag is a way for me to tag a bunch of notes with a similar phrase and be able to, in an instant, go grab all of those notes and look at them together. So as an example, if I am researching the right to drive, every legal code or every court case or every book I read that has something to do with that subject, I could tag it with right to drive. And then whenever I wanted to look at all of my information on that subject, I could just go and look at all tags that have right to drive on them. And so that is a functional way to use tags. It's you don't want to have too many tags, because then you can't find the things, or you're trying to add a tag to something, you can't remember what you called it, and you end up with 14 different tags that all kind of mean the same thing. Now, along that line, I do want to mention that there is a plugin called Tag Wrangler, and what it allows you to do is, if you bring up a list of all of your tags and you see one that you wish you hadn't created, you can right click on it and rename it. And if you give it the name of another tag you already have, it'll ask if you want to merge them, and it'll move all of the notes down to that other tag. So tags are extremely helpful. I use them a lot more now than I used to. Before, I used to actually go through and create links to everything, because I watched some videos on doing that. And, you know, my current position on links is, if I have a tag, if I have a note and I want to be able to get to another note from that note without having to go search for it, then I could put a link in there to that other note to be able to get to it. But I do not use links to categorize things or to link things in a bigger realm. So in other words, if I have a link called legal, I'm not going to use a link to link all of my legal stuff together, because it gets really messy, and it's very difficult to fix something if you mess up and you want to go back and change links. And it's just, you end up with this massive network of cards that are all linked together in order to try to categorize them. And so to categorize something, you want to actually use tags. If you want to physically be able to get from one card to another card, then you use a link. And so if you don't have a card that references that particular phrase, then don't link it. Use a tag. If you have, there's just no other way to say it. If you're not physically wanting to go open up another card to read it from the note that you're actually sitting on, then you don't want to use links to be able to get through all this stuff. You want to use tags to categorize, links to go jumping through to go read another card that's related. So as an example, I have a lot of legal cases, and if I go into my politics, I've got a folder here for court cases, and then I have my court cases broken down by the type of court case it is. But if I go in here and look at it, you can see that, you know, this particular case may have something to do with qualified immunity. It's a federal court case. It's a declaratory judgment. It has something to do with attorneys, civil rights, and it's a constitutional court case. And so these things allow me to be able to I want to go grab all of the qualified immunity cases that I have. I can instantly go and grab all of them. If I was using links to do this, I would literally have to jump from one note to the next note to the next note to try to get a list. And so it's much easier using the categories or the tags to do that. But if I scroll down here, I don't know if this particular case, this one doesn't. Let's see if we can find one here. because some of these court cases are actually court cases that were related to another court case. Maybe it overrode the earlier court case. I don't have one right in front of me here, but maybe it overrode the court case. Maybe it had something to do with the court case. See, here is an example of where my old style, I used to create links for things that are due process. Well, I don't have a note called due process, but every note that I tagged with due process gave me a way to be able to get back to all of those notes. But now the better way to go about doing that is to just have a tag up here for due process, and now I can go grab all the notes that are related to due process. So use folders. Don't listen to the people that are telling you to put 10,000 notes in one folder. It just gets unmanageable trying to find things. You're going to scroll for days if you can't remember the exact name that you're looking for. And download Tag Wrangler, because that'll actually speed up your process for finding the things that you're looking for, or managing your tags to make sure you don't have duplicates. One version upper and lower with a dash and the other version with camel case. It gives you the ability to go in and fix all that stuff. Like right here, I've got credit in here. I've got a note that's linked to credit, but I put credit as a lowercase, and I want to fix that. I can just come in here and make that an uppercase and then hit continue. And if there happened to already be something out there with the name with the uppercase, it'll ask me if I want to merge. Otherwise, it just changes it. And the beautiful thing about it is that it goes to every single note that has that tag in it, and it updates every single note so that they all reflect that new spelling or whatever it is that you actually happen to change. So that's all I wanted to go through.